can't remember how long ago it was. It might have been 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I did a video on IndyCar's charter, something that might help IndyCar out a little bit, because when you look at it, it seems like IndyCar is its own worst enemy. It seems to be all over the place with regards to this, that, and the other. I've also done something similar on the British Touring Car Championship and the state that series is in right now. A few teams dropping off, hybrid not exactly going as planned since it was, well, a one-man show last year, manufacturers losing a bit of interest, bring back the ballast, and bits and pieces like that. Although with regards to the BTCC, a smaller grid isn't necessarily a bad thing. 33 cars at Knockhill is always going to be a carnage fest. Knock kill, am I right? Yeah, alright, that one's terrible, but I think you can see my point. Loads of cars at tiny tracks with garages the size of an average family kitchen, not going to be fun at all, especially with all those support races too. Meanwhile, Formula 1 is also a one-man show, and it looks like the Netflix bubble has well and truly burst. IndyCar we've already covered, and NASCAR seems to be on a little bit of an up thanks to its own Drive to Survive type series, and bits and pieces like that, and a new TV deal. But at the same time, playoff system and the stage system is still, well, it's cack, let's be honest. So really, it seems like the only four-wheel motorsport on the up at the minute, and I say four-wheel because there's bound to be a MotoGP fan out there that will weigh in, is endurance racing. IMSA and the World Endurance Championship are attracting quite the audience at the minute. Having Ferrari as the current Le Mans winner is probably going to help with that, but when you have so many brands ready to roll and the ability for crossover between the WEC and IMSA with the LMH and LMDH regulations and the differences between the two I've covered because it's interesting and at the same time confusing, well, this year's Le Mans is going to be a highly anticipated one. The ACO and IMSA have got it right with the regulations, and switching to GT3 in the case of the WEC also helps because, well, it's GT3. And everybody loves GT3. Meanwhile, hiding just in the background in a series that'll make a few people go, well, is that it? Is Rally. Now, if you know the channel and me a bit, I loved Rally as a kid. It was much like the BTCC in a way, because those Group A and WRC cars of the 90s and into the first few years of the 2000s were the sorts of cars that you'd find on the roads across the UK and Europe, and there was always a brand for you to follow. Much like the BTCC, you could pick a brand based off what your dad had, and you could go out and buy those cars because of their performances in the World Rally Championship. At around 2001-2002, it was Subaru, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Peugeot, Seat, Ford, Citroën, Skoda, and Hyundai. Names like Panizzi, McRae, Burns, Mackinnon, Seitz, Solberg, Martin, Oriole, Gronholm, Delacour, Kankkunen. Household names, really. And when you've got Colin McRae with his PlayStation game, Rally, at that time, was huge. And it was not uncommon for stages to be cancelled because the crowds presented a safety issue. My first car was a Peugeot 206. My first car was a rally car. Alright, it wasn't strictly a rally car, it had nowhere near enough power to be a rally car, and it certainly wouldn't do half the stuff that Gilles Panizzi was able to do in it, like when he styled his way out of that spin at the Rally Catalunya in 2001, 2000, whenever it was, and when he got the pop from the crowd as he just spun it round and went off. But then again, I learned to drive on the back roads of South Lincolnshire, so I might as well have been on a rally stage. God, they were terrible roads. But after that, it seemed to have dropped off the proverbial cliff. The Sebastians probably didn't help. Between 2009 and 2013, motorsport was a case of, if you like your winners to be called Sebastian, then Formula 1 and Rally are for you. No, seriously, between 2004 and 2018 inclusive, someone called Sebastian won the WRC. Sebastian Loeb being so dominant that he was able to build up a lead, break his arm, miss a few rallies, and still win the championship. He won by a single point, but he still won the championship after missing 4 rallies with a busted arm. So there is that, but now the WRC seems to be concerning itself with the current set of regulations and how to change them to make things, well, a little bit better, and it looks like that the FIA is about to make some rash changes regarding the current Rally1 regulations. So what is Rally1? Well, it's the top class of rally car. There are no homologation requirements for Rally1 like there is for Group A, Group N or the old WRC regulations. There's no minimum build like there has been in the past, but they must bear a striking resemblance to road-going models because, at least as far as I can tell from the rulebook, they're classed as purpose-built competition vehicles. So, unlike Group B for instance, where they had to have some road-going examples of a mid-engine Peugeot 205, there's no such requirement here. If I ever hit the jackpot on the Euro Millions, there are two cars I'm buying, a Peugeot 205 T16 and a Lexus LFA. Attached to these cars is a hybrid system which can provide a 135 horsepower or so boost, which is deployed when certain conditions are met and it deploys it automatically. If you've played the latest WRC game, it's when the battery has been charged enough under braking and then when the throttle has passed a certain position. When the brakes are hit or the throttle has been lifted off, it turns off and it won't reactivate until the battery is fully charged again. It won't deploy even if there's still charge left. The problem is with these hybrids is that they add about 85 kilos of weight to the car, which, well, that's a lot. And you know those brands I mentioned before from the turn of the century? Well, now you've got Toyota with the Yaris, you've got Hyundai with the i20N, Ford with the Puma, and, well, that's it. 3 manufacturers. And only 4 drivers did every round of last season. And this was a season that was marred by the death of Craig Breen just before the Croatia Rally. Around the 1st of March 2024, the FIA announced that they were to make changes to the Rally1 format that will start in 2025. That's if the proposed changes go ahead. Which means that the rules that were supposed to last for 5 years won't last for 5 years. The FIA will ditch the hybrid and also make changes to the air restrictors to reduce power a bit more and then cut down on the aero. This is all part of a bigger aim to reduce the cost of a car down from €1 million down to about €850,000. What this will result in is an overlap in regulations, which has been seen in other categories such as the BTCC as it transitioned to the NGTC formula. What the FIA wants to do is have the current cars run in 2025 and 2026 without the hybrid and the changes to the aero and stuff like that, introduce a new formula in 2026 and then have a crossover point so that new formula will be in fully for 2027. Motorsport.com reports that these 2026 cars, well 2027 cars, will be even cheaper still, at around €400,000, although I won't be surprised if those costs go up a bit in the interim. Not only does this reduce costs, but it's also hoped that this will bring new manufacturers into the sport. They will also use a control chassis that manufacturers can build around, and they can use anything from a hatchback to a saloon to a compact, even use concept cars, all the way up to crossovers and SUVs. You know, a Fiesta on stilts like the Puma is. But, as reported by Dirtfish, the popular rally website and also a great YouTube channel if you want to see the history of rally stuff, they do it way better than I ever could because they go to the locations, they talk to people who were there, and basically they've just got way more pulling power than I do. But basically they reported in the last couple of days that the teams have written to the FIA and basically begging them to just let things carry on until 2027 and then have everybody come in then with the new manufacturers, new cars, if indeed that's what happens. They're citing contractual obligations, basically. They're contracted to use this hybrid system provided by Compact Dynamics until the end of 2026, with the FIA and the WRC Commission having a meeting tomorrow, which is the 9th of April, to try and reach a conclusion on how to approach things, and then it looks like a final vote will be done in June. But there is another issue. If they have the current cars, sans hybrid next year, the 3 manufacturers will need to bring revised cars that will have been designed, built, and tested between June and the Monte Carlo Rally next February, beginning of March. While it might seem as simple as just taking away the 85 kilos of hybrid and trimming the power and the aero, there's a bit more to it than that. Christian Horner's best mate in the whole wide world, Cyril Irritable as he calls him, it's Habitable. I think I've got that right, but basically he's now the boss of Hyundai, and he's saying that we can't get this done in time. And Hyundai has also said that they've had to can part of an aero update or a car update because, well, if this thing goes through, then it's going to be a lot of money to spend for something to be obsolete within the next 2.5 months from now. But if they're reducing the power, they have to reduce the aero as well. Sure, this F1 on gravel regulation they have now does look impressive, especially on tarmac, because they just grip. But maybe it's just me that I used to watch an era of cars going sideways a lot, which, if you're 8 years old, it looks cool. But if you've got too much aero and too little power, then the cars they just have too much grip. Some are asking why go backwards, but if you have less powerful cars with a lot of aero, the cars are just going to be too easy to drive, and they're going to look less appealing to the fans. Okay, you've got Rally 2, Rally 3, other Group A style classes that still exist, but there's a reason why Rally was so popular back in the 90s. The cars were sideways, they were cars you could buy, they were getting air. They were impressive to watch. Toyota, meanwhile, has told Autosport that they think that all the changes have been made too fast. Maybe just taking away the hybrid would be enough. That's going to make the cars slower anyway, so in their mind, that's job done. They're worried about optimizing the engine and the aero, which would take up too much manpower and time. So why not do one bit over 2025, one bit over 2026, and then have all new stuff for 2027, while they're designing the cars in the background. Ford has said pretty much the same thing as Toyota, with the M Sport boss actually going a little bit further as to say that he actually agrees with some of the bits that the WRC and the FIA want to bring in with this white paper, if you want to call it that. Chiefly the stuff about reducing the costs and also getting more manufacturers in, before ending the Vox Pop, again if you want to call it that, with they don't believe that the sport is broken. But is it broken? I mean, 3 manufacturers isn't exactly a good look, and each of those manufacturers has multiple drivers that effectively pad out the championship. V8 Supercars is currently in that same little pickle because they only have 2 manufacturers, and if Ford goes like it has been threatening, then it's just the GM Cup, and no one wants that because that series is Ford versus GM. It's red versus blue. DTM, under the old "we spent too much on an aero war and it's collapsed again" regulations, went the same way. Mercedes and Audi left, and it was left with just BMW. BMW even had a Class 1 car built for 2021, but it never raced, and that series is now another GT3 Cup in an already saturated GT3 series market, for want of a better phrase. So with those 2 series in mind, you would be forgiven for thinking that Rally, at the minute, is on a bit of a knife edge. Because if any one of Ford or Hyundai go, that might start the domino effect. And I say those 2 because Toyota is currently the top team, and them remaining winners is great for their brand, especially given their recent successes in the WEC, at Le Mans, and how that keeps their hybrid car marketing going. At this point, getting those costs down is bare minimum for the World Rally Championship, because no manufacturer in their right mind is going to have a crack. All the brands with sportier cars are going to go to endurance racing. That's far more appealing for them. What incentive is there currently in the WRC for someone like Nissan, GM, Stellantis, Subaru, FCA? But as has been the case in other categories, there is the balance between sport and entertainment that needs to be found. There's a reason why Formula 1 has been labelled WWF1 a few times, because they're leaning too much towards a spectacle at the expense of sport. The BTCC has usually been able to find the right balance between entertainment and sport, with, success ballast and reverse grids, meaning that the best and fastest cars and drivers will need to muscle their way through the pack for good points hauls. And the NGTC regulations have been around for over a decade now, which is quite rare. GT3 has proven itself as being cost effective, with the WEC introducing it in place of GTE, which went bust because the cost just got way too high, and they also replaced LMP1 with the hypercar regulations that can go to IMSA, and LMDH can go from IMSA to the WEC for all that crossover goodness. As I mentioned before, this year's Le Mans is going to be hotly anticipated. But to be honest, I think the best way of sorting all of this out is to allow the current teams to run what they've got until the end of 2026. That way, the manufacturers have enough time. Anyone who wants to come in has enough time. And when it all does click over in 2027, then everybody's on the same playing field. Everybody is new, they have brand new cars, the reset button is hit, and maybe at the same time, the WRC can help recapture some of that late 90s, early 2000s magic that endurance racing has been able to do with bringing back some of that Group C magic. But that's something for you to debate down in the comments. So then, this has been a thing that's happened in the world of motorsport, and this has been my opinion on that thing. If this thing has made you think things about the thing, then like this thing so I know I've done a good job. And for more things from this channel, get that subscribe button thing on and click the bell thing so you never miss out on anything that I do around here. Massive thanks as ever to the top lads at Patreon for the support, and if you want to help support me at a more personal level, a link to Patreon is in the description, along with links to Discord, socials, and other bits and pieces that you might want or need to know. Or there's super thanks and memberships if those float your boat. So until next time, I've been Millward, have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.